Hi, welcome to this inmendham video presentation, part 3 of TJ and Jordan Peterson. So let's understand where we are so far. Basically, TJ's strawmanned Peterson's book, because I don't think his book has anything to do with arguing that chaos isn't a solution to problems. Because I think he thinks there isn't a person dumb enough on earth to think chaos is a solution to problems. So he's not even understanding that his book is basically saying something like, life is like a lifeboat, and there's rough seas, and the boat's a little too small, and we have to have certain rules or we're not going to be able to live on the lifeboat, because some of us want to loaf and stretch out, and we stick our feet in some old lady's lap or something, and we're rude, and so it takes a little bit of intelligence to not only be able to keep the boat from sinking, but keep it clean and keep it livable in our condition, the tough condition of life. So, yay for Peterson for conceding that life is a lifeboat, that it's a bit of a horrible ride. Shoot him in the butt, or balls, for coming up with this idiotic notion that we should think there's any purpose to this stupid voyage. So yes, he's a retard for thinking we're going somewhere, except to the morgue. And that there's anything to be accomplished by perpetuating this nonsense. Putting children in a lifeboat. It's just so stupid. I'll put my kids in a lifeboat and push it out into the sea. You think something good's going to happen? No, nothing's good's going to happen. It's going to be stupid. Yes, there'll be some sunny days. They'll catch a fish, and everything will look like it's okay. We're going to make it, And then the sharks circle and blah blah blah. I mean, it all goes bad. Look at Blue Lagoon. It didn't work out at all. So anyway, and so TJ's just completely strawmanned his argument. The real problem with Peterson is his solutions are infantile. Period. Now this whole argument that somehow chaos is useful. So let's go back to the metaphor of what reality is. Reality is this rough ride through rough conditions. And who has really gotten us through those rough conditions are educated people and smart people and brave people. Not lazy people smoking pot, sitting around chewing on pizza. This isn't the way to make a civilization. And I think TJ, if you gave him a frickin' lie detector test, he would admit he'd rather live in a world of educated, smart people than the typical high school dropout. And there's just such an irony in his life story, because technically he is a smart person. He's educated. Even though he didn't finish high school, he has read. He has been curious about the world and inquired about things. He hasn't goofed off entirely. So there's such a hypocrisy in him saying or defending the thing Peterson is noticing. And the reason why Peterson's noticing it, right, is because he taught at a college a goofball course. Personality Fun or something. Personality Fun 101. It's obviously a course for goofballs. People go to college to get a degree and for nothing else. Just any degree will work. It doesn't matter. A degree in degreeing. A degree in getting college degrees. It's just garbage, right? Now, if he was maybe a teacher and, or he went to the lectures by the physics teacher or by the medical school teachers or that kind of stuff, those lecturers, maybe you'd see that the young people aren't all retarded fucktards. But his students were always fucktards because it was a junk course, a garbage course. Psychology. That's for losers who can't be a psychiatrist. And that's even true of himself. The ones who can't become psychologists. It's a bullshit degree in gibber and jabber. Perverse little human manipulations. It's a voodoo course. It's a what do you call that? Magic man or whatever. Medicine man. It's a medicine man course. It's not serious science. So that's the context of this. It's just a garbage, fake duality, um, you know, constructed for personal reasons. So it's just nonsense. So, you know, if have a fair fight about something real. The real problem with Peterson is that he thinks these trivial, you know, bullshitism, you know, pet a cat, you know, which is a nice little thing to say. But there's a ton of nice things to say to people. There's lots of advice you can give people. That's, you know, I probably wrote some down here somewhere. You know, seems like I would. Let's see. Don't know what. Yeah, don't run with scissors. That would be good to say, right? It's always kind of a good thing, you know. Don't drive faster than you need to. How about that? Don't drive any faster than you need to. That's probably reasonable. Don't drink too much. Yeah, why not? Or eat too much? Sure. You know, these are all good little things. We could probably come up with 5 or 6 million of these little simpleton things. You know, like don't shave with a butcher knife or something. You know, always retract your, what do you call those little bladey things, you know, that the terrorists can't have. Utility knife. Yeah, always retract the blade on your utility knife. You know, this is all good stuff, but it's not going to solve the problem. We need people who can do a lot more than retract the blade on their utility knife. Okay, and Peterson's right about that. You know, we need people who can do more than these simple things. And it's almost a way of mocking people to say, you know, you can't even retract the blade on your utility knife. You can't balance your checkbook, and you're going to get into a conversation about what responsible people who've spent their life trying to acquire knowledge and competence should do. I mean, that's really dumb. So, grain of truth in Peterson, but it's just one little grain, and like I said, his solution is a non-existent solution. Like, he just says shape up. Shape up isn't going to be enough. You got to give them a reason to shape up. And so that gets back to TJ, because TJ just doesn't think there's a reason for us to care about how we die on the lifeboat, or how well we live while we're on the lifeboat. He doesn't think it's really important. You know, you're going to die anyway, so, you know, live sloppy and die. Have a good time for, you know, 20 years and die. And, you know, that only sounds like reasonable to a kid, because the fact is you're not going to live to be 30 and die. I said 30 years old is way too old. I don't want to be 30 years old. I ended up being 30 years old, and then I made it all the way to 40, and I said, well, that's way past my limit. The last thing I thought about when I was a kid was, yeah, the year 2000, I'll be 40, and that'd be a perfect time to get the fuck out of here. But, you know, I'm heading towards 60, and I'm still here. So clearly, things change, and perspective changes, and all that simple rubbish that, why should I care? Well, one reason to care is a philosophical notion of knowing the future is bigger than the present. A lot bigger, potentially. That's one reason. One logical reason why caring matters. Because this lifeboat is going to be the same lifeboat the next group of survivors have to float in. And if you can do something now that's simple, that makes it so they don't have to keep bailing the boat out, you know, you can do the epoxy or something, and you can fix some problems, good on you. And that should be something everybody on this planet could say, good on anybody who takes that little extra effort to do something for the future. That's excellent. I will give you a medal. I'll applaud. I'll bow and do some gesture of gratitude. We should be even paying people to do that kind of thing. That's a good thing. Encouraging people not to care, not to worry about it, not to think about it, not to aspire to be a better person, to be productive, to save people grief and harm. That's being such an imbecile. And TJ's essentially doing that. He's saying just put on your Coolio glasses and, you know, drink your beer and eat your pizza and suck on your donuts, you know, just suck the jelly out and toss them over your head and just don't give a shit. And that's such a stupid attitude. So yes, in a real debate, TJ loses dramatically because all Peterson has to do is talk about how chaos is never the solution to a problem. Yes, it might instigate the fact that you now notice the problem, but it doesn't fix the problem. So it's just so obviously, this is such a stupid, fake duality. So, I mean, I'm saying TJ is educated, but obviously to butcher this duality so badly, when there really isn't one, both Peterson and TJ, I know it, if we give them lie detector tests, they want the next generation to be smarter, not dumber. They want it. And smart doesn't come for free. That's the whole point. Being smart is not going to be the easy road. It's the harder road. You know, unless you're really incredibly rich and you know, you can have tutors and they do all the work for you, kind of, and just kind of shove all the crap in your brain and you don't have to look for it, you don't have to filter it, you don't have to figure out, oh, well, that guy's full of shit, this guy isn't full of shit. Thanks, YouTube. Hopefully it'll remember where I was. I did, thank you.
When he was a member of the Nation of Islam, he was overtly racist, thinking of white people as devils and promoting black supremacy. Later in his life, he softened these stances and disavowed racism and the Nation of Islam, which is probably why three of its members riddled him with bullets. The point is, he was far from a perfect human being. His room wasn't clean, and his knowledge of the systems that he sought to...
Right, and again, this isn't about creating problems. This isn't about making things broken or more broken so we notice there's a problem. Noticing a problem is, frankly, again, that's back to kindergarten. The real game is fixing the problem, okay? The NASA engineers who got the Apollo 13 guys back, they weren't a bunch of goof-offs eating pizza, okay? I mean, they had to do the work to be able to be smart enough to figure out that, oh yeah, you can take the hose off the whatchamacallit and glue it onto the thingamajig and blah, 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 and make a filter to, you know, so you have breathable air. And, you know, they had to figure out all that crap, how to move the oxygen from one tank into the non-existent pathway to the other tank to get it to the place where they needed it. I mean, they had to figure out all that shit. And they had to figure out without even seeing it. You know, the solution wasn't chaos. The solution was intelligence applied by people working hard. Not by people just goofing off saying it's not my problem, the world's bad, fuck the world, fuck this, fuck the astronauts in space, let them suffocate. And that's what this guy is basically saying. You have no responsibility to the future. Absolutely no responsibility whatsoever. Fuck them. Fuck everybody but your fucking self, right? And that's all he's preaching here, is lazy and stupid. Selfish gluttony, piggery. And he's veiling it in some sort of productive chaos notion that is just too stupid to be described. It's too stupid for the word stupid.
Change was far from perfect. It didn't stop him from speaking out, and much of what he said I don't agree with. He believed in racism, in segregation, in the extinction of the white race, and in the...
We did all that already.
In the midst of those times, to a white man like me, he would have been a frightening force. But through the cold lens of retrospect, I see these positions he took as largely a reaction of the disenfranchised to living in a world that was demonstrably stacked against them.
Well, even that's a bit of an exaggeration. I mean, clearly the dysfunction was our creation, okay? We imported them, gave them no legacy and no education. And so they didn't have any wealth to inherit. They didn't have any property to inherit. They didn't have a gold watch to inherit. So they're starting off, with a huge disadvantage in this race around the track, and so they're many laps behind in terms of their civilization. They're like 100 years behind in terms of a civilization. And then we're mocking them because we got it first, and we got there first, and we did this first, and we did that first, and then we monopolize whatever there is that we got first, and then claim everyone else is so far behind. Well, they're so far behind because you used up all the rubber, and you used up all the carbon, and you used up all the air, and you used up all the everything. So everybody's behind because you used it all up and you stole it all. That was the real problem. But clearly, you also have to recognize that obviously it's just like white trash. There's all kinds of trashy kind of people, and you see what happens when you subsidize trash. You get more trash. So that's the real danger here. Is caring can sometimes be, you have to do it in some manner, that is more than just beating people into submission, because the whip isn't going to work. You got to give them a road out. You got to give them a way to walk out with dignity. You can't whip them out of the hole. And we tried to whip them out of the hole. You just get defiance when you start whipping people.
I also view the hardline stance of Malcolm X as making the comparatively softer stances of Martin Luther King Jr. more palatable to white America. Even X himself seemed to realize this when he spoke to a crowd of 300 Islam.
Oh man, so he really thinks this is a meaningful argument in terms of the solution to the problem was created by Malcolm X. It wasn't. The solution was created by social engineers who kind of could figure out what we can do to go from here and in 10 years be somewhere else. And they succeeded in going from one place and getting to another place in 10 years. And they got there.
Islamic students on December 10th, 1964. He said, "I'll say nothing against Martin Luther King Jr. At one time, the whites in the United States called him a racialist, an extremist, and a communist. Then the black Muslims came along, and the whites thanked the Lord for Martin Luther King." Later in his life, Malcolm would come to believe that all races could live together in harmony. He believed, wrongly in my opinion, that Islam would be the ideology that could accomplish this. But whether I agree with Malcolm X or not isn't the point. The point is that he didn't...
Yes, you'll forget about the racial stuff, just hate women instead. Yeah, Islam works so much better. Aye.
Wait for his room to be clean before he spoke out against the injustices that he perceived in the world.
Again, that's not the standard, right? So Jordan Peterson isn't talking to children, I mean adults who are accomplished, people who have competence. He's not saying to doctors, go clean your room. He's talking to young little punks who think they can just walk into the palace, who think there's no staircase they have to walk to competence. They think because they're here, they're entitled. They're entitled to the title because they merely showed up to watch the race. They're therefore the winner of the race. They've somehow been so pampered by their mommies, and this is true, and they've been told that every drawing they make is brilliant and every stupid jackass thing they do is magnificent. Something like you, TJ. You get rewarded for doing nothing but buffoonery, stupid, retarded shit. And you get a bunch of people to applaud, and you didn't do anything. You belched. Yes, that's how kids are being brought up. Like every sound and stink they produce is somehow magnificent. Because nobody wants to discourage their creativity, and nobody But it's also turned them into a bunch of fucking sissies and retards. So Peterson is right that we certainly have, as a culture, been way too, pampers. We're making it way too easy to think you're somebody when you really haven't tried to be anybody.
And as his views changed, so did what he preached to his people. And so those who followed his journey changed with him. He didn't wait until his ducks were all in a row.
Okay,
He got them...
again, this is just such a straw man. Because clearly, Peterson's not talking to the accomplished. especially his peers and his fellow colleagues and all of that crap. He's not ridiculing the competence of the professionals in the world. He's ridiculing the competence of the generation who needs somehow to be told not to run with scissors.
In a row as he went, as best he could. And more than half a century after his death, his name and his legacy remain.
This is almost like the Hitler card, you know, when you go this long. I mean, I think it's really important to now and then bring up Martin Luther King's, you know, I have a dream thing, you know, or something like that. But I don't see this. This is just bringing up the Hitler card here, just droning on as if this is the perfect example of where, you know, these people played all the cards right and everything was just perfect, because it really wasn't. And it isn't the diagram of the answer. The answer should have been, a solution should have come much sooner and much easier.
For better or for worse, and that once again is relative, he changed the world. He didn't need perfect order in his life to change the order.
Again, just such a straw man
of the world. He didn't need perfect knowledge of the systems he was affecting in order.
So again, why don't you point out a retard who was a major player in fixing something? The point is, go show me the person who is the high school dropout, for example, who doesn't earn it on their own and doesn't do the hard work. Show me show me the accomplished who didn't earn the accomplishment. And I'm not talking about money, because obviously money's inherited. I'm talking about skill. I'm talking about ability. So let's show me the person who has done something really incredible in terms of some social contribution, and they didn't read too many books or attempt to acquire knowledge or spend any time engineering and thinking. Show me that. Show me where the chaos, the lazy and ignorant, came to save the day. I mean, this is just so stupid. Paul, are you out there? You couldn't explain to TJ that this is such a false dichotomy? I mean, that he's way off base with this bullshit?
Change those systems. Many of those who changed the course of history not only used chaos as their tool, but had skeletons in their dirty rooms. Winston Churchill was a white...
What does that have to do with it again? So what does the fact that humans are flawed have to do with the fact that you have to have some knowledge, like Patton? You know, Patton wasn't some imbecile. He studied every battle in history. He did the work to be able to be a general that could win. And maybe he didn't win in some way that other people would find acceptable in terms of the losses he accepted. But the fact is, he had a knowledge base to defend his application of his influence. Where there's a ton of people who think they should have influence, they should be driving a bus, and they never took a driving test. They never spent 15 minutes studying how high the bus is, or how much the bus weighs, or how much friction the tires can take. They haven't done anything to qualify themselves for the job.
Supremacist prick who very few people actually liked. But he still led England through the darkest days of its history in World War II.
You know what? He led them into a war that probably was unnecessary, right? So again, let's just play this game that if you really look at the history, I mean, frankly, it should have never come to war. And it was only because of Britain's declaration of war that there was a war. So, I don't know if having this strong character defiantly say, I'm going to declare war on you merely because you're going to rescue some of your people, okay, across a border. And that's sort of what happened. So, people can play games with it, but Hitler didn't officially declare war. That was done by our side, so to speak.
John Lennon was an absentee father and wife-beater, but he still wrote great songs and
Oh, whatever. That's all subjective mush. Jingle bells, yeah, well, okay. Imagine having the 10-inch penis. Imagine all the girls love you a lot and such. Whatever. I mean, anybody can write a song.
An enormous groundswell of support for peace activism. Thomas Jefferson was not only a slave owner, but he was also fucking at least one of his slaves.
Again, you know, in what context? And also, I mean, it really hasn't been proven because his brother would have the same alleles in his DNA, so it could have been his brother, and the whole thing could be bullshit. But regardless, he was a slave owner who was against slavery. So let's understand, that hypocrisy is kind of okay if you're supporting and defending and arguing with other people for the emancipation of the slaves. And that's what he actually did with his time. He actually was encouraging people to understand that slavery is a non-starter for a civilization. It's not a winning strategy. It's a failure.
Sally Hemings, and had numerous children by her. But he was still instrumental in laying down the foundational thoughts that defined what the United States of America would be as a country.
And again, and nothing to do with chaos. Again, Jefferson was one of the most accomplished men at 22 years old or whatever. He writes the fucking Declaration of Independence. Clearly, chaos was not his theme song. Clearly, he didn't march to chaos, 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 pizza, pizza, Coke, Coke, Coke. He didn't do that. He didn't do, don't give a shit. Don't care, don't pay no attention, be a nihilist son of a bitch. That wasn't his fucking theme song, retard! So again, every single one of these characters was somebody motivated and devoted to the idea of being more than just a selfish pig. This is so ironic.
Ford was an anti-Semite who bought the Dearborn Independent newspaper just to propagate his hatred of the Jews. But he still revolutionized industrial manufacturing with his ingenious vision of the assembly line.
Yeah. Well, we won't even go into that. But obviously that was inevitable, correct? I mean, anybody can figure out that some capitalist sooner or later was going to figure out how to do that. Okay? And figure out how to basically, you know, well, I'm just saying. I mean, he did resist the idea that these kind of workers were as worthy as his kind of worker. You know.
Aristotle was brutally misogynistic and thought women were little more than deformed men. But he was still among the most brilliant and foundational philosophers of all time. Einstein was a philanderer. Benjamin Franklin was a womanizer.
Well, Einstein was a lot more than a philanderer. He's fucking abandoned his fucking kids and basically, you know, whatever you want to call it, you know, bought his way out of his marital commitments.
Christopher Columbus was an absolute fucking clueless dolt. This could go on ad nauseum. When you study the lives of influential people...
Right, and has absolutely nothing to do with the idea that chaos has anything to do with the fact that all those people were human beings and they did things that were against what religion would say. Obviously, most of those crimes were non-crimes by today's standards. Most of those, it was just that it had to be in secret. You couldn't be an open homosexual, and you couldn't be this, and you couldn't be that, and you couldn't be any of those things. Well, now you can say, I'm an atheist. I don't worry about that kind of crap. I don't get married, okay? I make contracts with women. I don't bother with this formal government sanctiony crap. I just make a personal a contract. You know, I can figure out how to write it myself. I don't need the government to write it for me. We can do this ourselves now. We don't need the rest of the world to tell us how to live. I mean, if you don't want to be married, don't get fucking married.
People who changed the course of history in some way, big or small, good or bad, finding someone with their shit together is a lot harder than you'd think. Jordan Peterson.
Okay, so what the hell that even meant in this context? Finding somebody with their shit together has something to do with defending chaos, but somehow chaos makes people who have their shit together. When we already know that not running with scissors creates the people who will have their shit together. Not balancing your checkbook is the people who have their shit together. Stepping on a cat versus petting a cat. Yes, those people are going to be more useful on a lifeboat. If you're on a lifeboat, do you want to be on a lifeboat full of people who kill cats or pet cats? I mean, honest answer, please.
Directive to see to it that you have mastery over yourself before you attempt to change the world is not an antidote to chaos at all, but a paralytic agent.
Yes, it's exactly, I mean, I'm just saying that clearly it's a trivial way of understanding how people maturate, but it is a general truth, TJ. Again, if you had children, would you want them to drop out of high school? I mean, I don't think you would. I think you would want them to to enhance their opportunities, to create as much opportunity and potential so they have lots of choices, not to narrow their choices. You'd want them to expand their choices. So this idea that you're rejecting Peterson because he's recognizing that there is a theme here, that life isn't easy. Life is hard. You want to live a good life, it's going to be a life you're going to have to invest in. You're going to have to pay for it. A good life just doesn't happen. You have to make it happen. And people goofing around saying, what's in it for me, aren't going to make it happen. You're not inspiring a better world. You're doing exactly the opposite. You dumb fuck.
That places you at the mercy of chaos. Because while you're trying to master yourself and clean your room, the world does not sit idly by and wait for you to find your bearings. It churns and morphs and fights and yields to the forces that act upon it.
And who acts upon it except for Thomas Jefferson's? All right? People motivated and people intelligent enough to do it. The competent solve problems, not the incompetent. And you don't become competent through chaos. I mean, how fucking stupid can you be? I'm an artist. I don't need to be instructed. Yeah, you do. Or you're gonna suck.
The time to wait until you're the master of yourself before you fight to change the world.
So again, that's not really what he's saying, okay? But yes, it's true. Martin Luther King, when he was 6 years old, wasn't ready. Maybe when he was 10 years old, he wasn't ready. But there was a point where he had done enough work with his father or whatever and learned how to be motivational that he was ready. But he wasn't ready for any random reason. He was ready because he was constructed to be so. You think Tiger Woods was created by chaos? Or do you think Tiger Woods was created by manufacturing, by deliberate and extensive construction? He was imposed upon by structure, and that structure produced the product. Dumbass. Chaos hasn't done his life any good. If he had a little more structure, he would have been the greatest ever. But he fucking farted it away. With chaos.
Take that tact, you will die. Still in pursuit of your own perfection. And the world will not blink at your passage because you...
What a pile of crap. So if you become a doctor, you will die. And nothing productive will come of it. But if you become a lazy pizza eater smoking pot, okay, and saying I'm an artist, I can play at least 3 strings on my guitar, I'm set for life, somehow that's not going to be the definition of fucking failure. The artists starve, by the way, TJ. A tiny percentage of them would do some gimmick, but most of them end up like Van Gogh, a failure in their own time and dead early.
You left no mark. You cannot always play defense. You cannot focus all of your energy on fortification of yourself and none of your energy on attacking that which you find
He's kind of intense, isn't he? I mean, it's just... Sorry. Too stupid. This is a ludicrous argument. And to have this much passion over something this trivial. I mean, it's just so... trivial is the wrong word. I mean, again, I don't have words to describe how vacant this argument is as having any substance. I'm against people having to work to be qualified. How dare you imply we must have qualifications, that somehow we must acquire skill through hard labor? How dare you imply that has to happen at all? When it's just such a fundamental fact of life, it's insane to say it's avoidable. It's insane for anybody to argue there's any other road. There is no other road to being competent than work.
Unjust or incompetent. The truth as I see it is this. No one's room is actually clean. No one truly has an antidote for chaos, and hopefully by now you've...
Okay, yeah, no antidote for chaos. Again, the argument is, how do you make people who are equipped to take on the challenge of chaos? He's not going to eliminate the chaos. He's not saying he can make the boat right easy. He's not saying he can calm the seas. This will calm the ocean, and it will make our rowboat 400 times bigger. He's not arguing that. He's arguing what kind of people can you create to navigate this fucking sea and to steer this fucking boat and keep these people comfortable. That's the argument. What kind of people do that? People who live in chaos, or people who understand what purpose and function is and know how to create those things? And you don't do it sitting around smoking dope, eating pizza. That's not the fucking answer. Wrong answer.
Realize that's a good thing. Chaos is not your enemy. It is your friend.
So, just a retarded statement in any sense, especially if you're going to be honest to Peterson's description of chaos, which clearly in your own video clips was, we die. Okay? Is he offering everlasting life? Well, I guess in some sense he's pretending to. But I mean, realistically, do you think he's saying, I have the answer in this book to living forever, and all you have to do is clean your room and pet a cat? That's not what he's saying, clearly. So this is all just such a fucking perverse straw man.
Even when it hurts you, it is often reshaping your world in ways that history will ultimately deem were for the better.
Yeah, that never happened. So again, it's just nonsense. I mean, all it can do is make brokenness louder. It can break things more, okay? And then we have to do the reaction to the more broken. But it's not going to create the solution. And it in no way is that extra negative, okay, superior to having people who would be smart enough to recognize the little they hear, there's little, little things that you just say, like they put little clips on brake pads so they squeak when your brake pads need to be changed. And I cannot tell you how many people, because I've done brakes, a lot of them, and they just don't pay any attention. And so you turn something that costs $40 to fix into something that costs $140 to fix. And for no good reason except people don't want to pay attention. And that's all you're arguing here. Not paying attention works. No, paying attention works.
To wish for an antidote to chaos is to wish for a static world, an inert world, a world that cannot change. To think that you must be a perfect being with perfect knowledge before you can...
Again, a complete straw man. I'm sure Jordan Peterson or whatever, I'm sure if you asked him, he has great expectations for what human potential could bring. I'm sure he might even think some virtual reality stuff is cool, and this is cool, and that's cool. He's not for stagnation. He's not exactly for going back to Salem witch trials. Yes, his answers are too simplistic. In my opinion, you're not going to motivate people to do hard work with these stupid little insults. Clean your room. He is actually trolling the younger generation. if they take it as something other than just being trolled, that quite obviously you're not going to be a somebody behaving like a nobody. If you want to be a somebody, you have to behave like a somebody. You have to, you can't be a vacuum cleaner unless you're built to be a vacuum cleaner. You can't do it as just a lump of wood. You have to carve yourself into the thing you want to be. And I mean carve yourself in the sense you have to be willing to jump into the mill.
Seek to change the world is not an idea supported by even the most cursory glance throughout history. Chaos can give birth to order, and chaos can change one system of order into a new system.
And again, it has nothing to do with the subject. The subject is, what's the antidote to chaos? So again, this argument that there's some productive chaos, when we've already acknowledged that the only productive chaos is to break something enough so the squeak gets loud enough. It's putting a bigger squeaker on the brake pad so it gets so annoying that you have to fix it. But that's hardly something we should have to do. We shouldn't have to wait for extra chaos before we do the rational thing and pay attention to the squeaking wheel.
System of order. We've seen that time and time again. But can order itself give birth to chaos? The American Civil War.
Order gave birth to chaos. It just doesn't, again. And where is the chaos in war, in a sense? I mean, you have these highly professional war strategists, moving their sticks around and mapping and strategizing. It's not exactly the definition of chaos.
What was it, if not chaos? A country divided in two, brothers killing brothers, to the tune of 600...
Right, and for a really in-your-face reason. Not for no reason, but for a fundamental philosophical reason. What are we going to be? And do you have a right to cut our nation in half? Big subjects, not little subjects, big, huge subjects.
20,000 deaths. More Americans died in the Civil War than died in Korea, Vietnam, World War I, and World War II combined. And yet...
So he didn't even say that right. No possible way that happened, right? He just means per capita. But per capita, I don't think it was all of those combined. So that's kind of bullshit in itself, too. But there's no way that statement made any sense. I mean, it's on its face wrong. I mean, 50,664,000 or whatever, not even close to the same number.
The chaos was born out of two conflicting ideas of order. It was the zenith of a conflict that existed since the formation of our country, tying back to the...
Again, another putrid definition of chaos, another, we should have been able to negotiate a solution. The chaos was in the fact that we didn't have the social structure to be able to have a cushion against these tensions, enough of a cushion, enough of ballast, something to force us to do some other process than to, invoke stupidity, a bad solution, far from the right, far from the best solution imaginable. So we accepted that. And it's just unfortunate we didn't have a mechanism to stop it. But we still haven't created a mechanism. We're still threatening the world with nuclear bombs. I mean, we just aren't interested in solving the problem by creating mechanisms of order that prevent them. And it will be a mechanism of order. It will not be liberty and freedom, okay, that will save the world from World War III and IV and V. If the world's to be spared of those things, it's not going to be because we say disorder wins. It's because we understand that we have to have order, and we give the nukes to Linux. We give them to open source software or some other mechanism that doesn't allow our petty resentments and our petty actions to decide that now we're going to invoke stupidity. We have to have mechanisms to prevent the knee-jerk from knee-jerking. And we have to do the thoughtful thing. not the chaotic thing.
Competing visions of Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton for what this nation should be, with Hamilton pushing for centralized power under the rule of a strong federal government and Jefferson pushing for a looser affiliation of states with greater autonomy and more of a right towards self-determination. It wasn't until nearly a century had passed that these competing ideas had it out with each other over the issue of slavery. The chaos of the Civil War was a battle to determine whose vision of order should exist.
Well, it's a battle about whether it's functional, even to say that if you're going to call yourself the United States, you can't be fundamentally divided. So the argument was really about the fact that we have to concede we have no United States. If we're going to allow ourselves to be this different, then we have nothing in common. We can't work together. We can't live together. I'm not going to be taxed to give money to some slave owner, that kind of thing. There was no, these were irreconcilable differences in the sense that you had to reconcile them, and neither side could compromise enough.
And Hamilton's vision won a hard-fought victory. Though the battle is still not truly ended, there are still those among us who hold more to Jefferson's ideal and despise the central power of the federal government. The point is that, yes, order can give birth to chaos, usually when there are two conflicting notions of...
And again, that central power is in the form of some simple statement like you don't have a right to enslave people. You don't have a right to be unfair in grotesque ways. I mean, that's hardly an insane imposition of order. That's a perfectly rational imposition of order. The good guys won. He can't quite say it, but that's the way it worked out.
What order should exist, but a system of order that is challenged neither by chaos nor a different order will not change itself. And even when two forms of order compete, they must each use the tool of...
Right, and chaos won't provide an answer. Chaos is retarded and without order, without imposition, without construction. It's common with all those things, and those things will not solve the problem. Saying it's every man for himself will not create anything called civilization or survivability or function or efficiency or productivity. You will get none of those things with your retarded answer.
Chaos to achieve their ends, as Mr. Lincoln and his Union Army did, or as Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X did, as all of the world-changing figures and their legions have done throughout time. Order itself is never perfect. The founding documents of our own nation include a much contested provision in the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, look, some of it's really perfect, and yes, some of it's flawed, but there's to argue that it's fundamentally imperfect or something is idiotic in my opinion. There's some really good words in the Constitution. In some other constitutions, like the German Constitution or the French, you can find even better words, and we should probably fix some of ours with their better words.
It's called the Second Amendment. This provision...
Right, a provision that has a gigantic big clause put on it. You know, yeah, this is true, but only because this is true. So it's already a compromised amendment. It's clearly time dependent. Time and circumstance dependent. That's essentially what it is. That's why the extra words are there. And the fact that you imbeciles can't figure that out is really, really stupid. I mean, the fact that you think I only have to pay attention to the end sentence. I don't have to pay attention to the 3 sentences above it. I mean, fuck.
States, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Was the intent of the amendment to ensure that all Americans have the right to own guns?
No, it's clear what the intent was. It said right in the beginning, we need a militia because we don't have a standing army. The fact is we can't defend our country if people don't have guns because we don't have anybody else to have the guns except for the people. We don't have robots. We don't have F-15s. We don't have cruise missiles. We don't have nuclear submarines. Well, we have absolutely no way to defend our country except somehow we can't give guns to squirrels because they don't have fingers long enough to pull the trigger. We can't give the guns to the bears because the bears will shoot us because they hate our guts. So I guess we have to give the guns to the fucking retarded humans because we don't really have a fucking choice. That's what it's clearly saying. It's clearly saying it. It's not like saying it in some veiled way. It's clearly saying we have no choice. So, yeah, you gotta own a gun or we're fucked. I mean, it couldn't be any more fucking explicit. But the whole point why they explained it is because they're saying, look, in the future, you might not need a militia. Like now, we don't need a militia. So we can rewrite this stupid amendment.
Or only that a well-regulated militia does? Was the intent of the amendment that guns cannot be regulated? Does the amendment make sense in a modern context? After all, it was written in the time of muskets, not the age of AR-15s. These are questions that can be and have been examined elsewhere. The questions I'm interested in here are...
Well, great. That's a really cool distraction. I'll bring up some subjects, just glaze over them like with nothing, and then change the subject. Cool. I mean, that's such a great thing. I love doing that. No, I hate that. I really hate the fuck out of that. When somebody premises their statement with a really complex subject and then jumps to some simple bozo subject.
Why do these questions exist? Why does this debate exist? What has prompted this amendment to the Bill of Rights to come under such intense scrutiny?
I don't know. I mean, it's amazing. We're living in a country where we have we have trigger words, right? You want to live in a country where the average person of these average intelligence you think is competent. I wouldn't let them drive my bus, and you think they're competent to own guns. Yeah, well, that's one reason why I would disagree. Just because I don't think they really are. I mean, they can make guns. You know, you can make a gun. It's not a big deal. But you have to be a little bit competent to do it without blowing your face off. So I'd rather they try blowing their faces off.
Few Americans would struggle.
I mean, it's that Darwin thing, you know what I mean? The losers will be eradicated, which will be really great. The really dangerous types, the ones who aren't competent, will be, the pool will be cleansed.
Well, to answer this question, the reason that gun control versus gun rights is one of the most hotly contested issues of our age is because of bad actors with guns, armed robbers, mass shooters, including school shooters, gang violence, high rates of gun
I don't think that's all. I mean, frankly, I just find it bizarre having grown up in a world where nobody was banishing guns. None of my friends when I was a kid had a gun. Nobody did. Nobody even thought about it. Nobody even thought it was some sort of purposeful thing to do. Well, except when I lived in Louisiana, of course, where, okay, one brother shot his brother, okay, with a BB gun, and his father came out with a pair of needle-nose pliers and stuck it in his gut and pulled the BB out. It was still in the tissue, but yeah, that's a fun place to live, Louisiana.
Suicide, gun homicide, and gun accidents. If not for these pockets of chaos, these events that are a threat to the orderly existence that people desire for themselves, this amendment would be as uncontroversial as most of the others. Once again,
I just don't think so, TJ. I mean, I think it does go a little further than that, where you really don't want to get into an argument with your neighbor if he's got a 9mm on his waist. I mean, you really can't have any kind of civilization if we're going to play this game where we're just going to intimidate each other with how big our guns are. And then what am I supposed to do? He's got a gun, so what am I going to do? So I'm going to start tying firecrackers to gas cans and sticking them in the window so he sees it? You know, what's the escalation? I'm just saying you're just conceding that this is about trying to intimidate each other. And that can't be very good. So yeah, fuck it. It's not necessary and it's socially corrosive. I don't know why anybody rational invests in it, and I certainly just mock the fuck out of the Christians who do. These fucking retards who thinks God's will be done, but somehow God won't protect them. It won't be God's will Okay, so they have to somehow stop God's will from happening by shooting the will comer.
See two competing visions of order. Shall we live in a society where the right to own guns remains unencumbered by law, or one in which gun ownership is regulated to some much greater degree or banned outright? Both positions...
All positions don't matter. What we really want to do is try to raise human beings who don't see it as necessary or productive or an entertainment. They understand that it's basically a symbol of failure in terms of human civilization. The idea that we are going to all own ourselves an arsenal to fight each other. I mean, you're already admitting defeat. As soon as you pick it up, you're admitting defeat. You're admitting you're not invested in your civilization.
Represent order. The former order has been shown to contain within it elements of chaos, and the latter will surely contain chaos of its own. Though we strive towards order, chaos is always with us.
I mean, maybe perhaps the solution is they ought to give local communities the right to say we're a non-gun community, so that local towns can just say, no, we don't need it, and we're not going to do it. Okay, so if you want to own guns, do it in gun town, because we're not going to be gun town.
And oftentimes, as we discussed earlier in this chapter, our chaos arrives in the form of another man's order. And no system of order can fully contain chaos. Allow guns, you see more gun violence. Ban guns, and you perhaps leave citizens without an ability to defend themselves against criminals and tyrants.
Right, we know that's not how 99% of criminal apprehensions aren't happening because of people have guns. So again, this is just a complete canard of an argument. We know the gun is more likely to injure a family member than it is a real threatening criminal. I mean, if you want to call a shoplifter a criminal, right? Sometimes it's a kid knocking on the door for Halloween, not hardly a big criminal. So I mean, this idea that somehow guns are solving a problem, they're not solving any problems, they're creating problems. And it would just be nice, it would be nice, okay, if this was one of the things that human beings could agree on, that we're not going to sit there and intimidate each other with guns. It's not a good idea to have a bunch of, I mean, look how many people drink and do drugs and do all this stuff, and you want them walking around with guns. I don't understand. That's really dumb.
We have lots of cliches ready to throw at such a predicament. Catch-22, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Pick your poison. The relationship between chaos and order is a complicated thing that touches on every facet of human existence.
Right, and chaos is a simple thing. So again, you're just not getting it. Chaos doesn't solve the complexities of life. And so again, you're way off of the Peterson agenda. His agenda is saying basically that. He's saying to fight chaos, you have to be competent. You have to have tools, and you have to know how to use them. And so it's just bullshit for you people who haven't done any tool making at all. You haven't figured out how to balance your fucking checkbook. You haven't figured out how to do the simple things, and you want to do the complicated things. That's right in his statement. Now again, I'm arguing that this idea that, you know, somehow these things are necessary, I don't even think he's arguing that. Again, he's talking to young people. He's not talking to fucking adults. He's talking to idiots. And idiots kind of need to be told, you got to do better. You're failing. I mean, so in a way, I should be happy that somebody's telling idiots you're failing.
Perhaps existence itself. The subjectivity of these concepts makes the relationship only more complex by orders of magnitude. But amidst the dizzying complexity, amidst the subjectivity, and amidst the cycles of chaos creating order and competing orders creating chaos and order using chaos to transform itself, and people caught in the maelstrom trying to sort through the debris and find patterns of...
Yes, and all of that maelstrom, all that crap, you need a good captain, right? Even in the Pirates stupid movie, you know, they got the good captain to sail the boat in the maelstrom because he's better at it. He's professional. He's not a pot-smoking, pizza-eating fat slob. He's not a goofball.
Order when only chaos seemed to reign supreme amidst all of those things. There is one truth that can be clung to. One truth that is beyond dispute and beyond serious argument: chaos cannot and should not be cured. An antidote to chaos is an antidote...
Okay, so again, he thinks chaos is rebellion, chaos is fighting the man, chaos is rejecting authority, chaos isn't ignorance, chaos isn't disorder, chaos isn't an unorchestrated symphony. No, those things are chaos. Chaos is you have a bunch of monkeys playing the piano and the tuba and the bongo drums and the violins. Yes, let's have monkeys fill the orchestra, and we'll see how well they do against the professionals. And we'll see which one's more likely to create something called music. I mean, this is just an idiotic argument to argue that chaos has something to do with function. It has everything to do with dysfunction. Oh, man.
Antidote to the new, an antidote to change, an antidote to progress. In other words, it's no antidote at all, but a poison that paralyzes humanity. Luckily for all of us, Peterson's book cannot...
What a pile of crap that was. Well, again, you haven't argued Peterson's book. You've argued something entirely different.
Cure chaos. It can only offer yet another.
Again, it doesn't cure chaos. It cures the problem of chaos winning. The only way to win against chaos is to have competence, to have purpose, to not be a nihilist or a goof-off. Chaos will not be beaten by goof-offs.
Idea of order, a vision of order that must compete against many others in a chaotic marketplace of ideas. Whether it can survive that marketplace will have very little to do with the true false...
If this is the kind of argument Peterson's going to get, okay, as an argument against his ideas, Peterson's going to win big. Because you're making Peterson look smart, and he's incredibly infantilely stupid. And you're making him look smart, because he's not as dumb as you.
Merits of the ideas, but will be instead contingent on how successfully it stirs the human soul. People long for order, and so...
Again, there's no human soul. It's stirring their intelligence, their little knowledge programs, and that's the only way something rises to the top of your brain is your other programs can't defeat it in an argument. The battle of ideas happens inside of our own brains, and our own brains realizes sticking the pie up my ass is stupid. Oh, it is. I can't beat that argument. That is a winning argument. I really don't win anything with the pie in my ass. So yes, eating the pie, better move. Get it to my ass through this top-down way instead of the bottom-up way. Yeah, that's the winner. That's what happens inside your brain. Your brain balances the reasonableness of things. Okay, there's a competition between these idea notions, and frankly, you just have to be an obnoxious, selfish cunt not to realize these truths. Okay, it's because it's not to your advantage. So rationalizations are made. And that's all you're made out of, TJ, is fucking rationalizations and excuses. Your whole fucking existence is built out of making excuses for being less than a decent human.
You offer it to them, many will buy it. Chaos is a harder sell. Because with chaos comes challenges. With chaos comes confusion, uncertainty, fear, and tribulation.
Again, chaos solves nothing. It just makes broken louder. That's all it does. It makes broken more obvious. It doesn't provide solutions to the broken. Oh, fuck. It just makes holes in the wall bigger. You're helping the moths. You're saying the moths are eating the clothes, and you're just saying, well, let me take some scissors and make the holes bigger. There. Now the holes are big enough to surely notice. Now we know the sweater is shit. Now what are we going to do with it? Oh, we can't do anything with it because it's actually shit. There's no fixing it now because we broke it too much now. So that's the danger of your notion of chaos. Go too far down that slippery slope, and guess what? You can't fix it anymore. But that's exactly what you want. You want a world that can't be fixed. Because you feed on blood and guts and pain. You feed on it. It personally gratifies you to see it happen. You're feeding on our harm and destruction. And here you are pretending you're somehow on our side. Fuck. God, that's evil. Oh.
But we can't hide from the powers of chaos, and I would argue that we shouldn't try. It has done more for us than I've seen many people frankly admit, and nothing has ever been gained from denying its power.
So again, it's just a complete pile of shit. So many of the problems we have may in fact be unfixable because we've not addressed them soon enough and we've allowed them to become chaotic. And now we're not going to be able to fix it. It's too late. So that your whole argument is defeated.
I will close this chapter with 2 summarizing aphorisms. Number 1, order provides the stabilities that we crave, but chaos creates the opportunities for change that we need.
So again, it's just so stupid. Chaos does not open opportunity doors. All it does, again, is make the squeaky wheel louder. Loud enough that we can't ignore it anymore. And by doing that, we risk ruining the drum and having a catastrophic failure of the wheel. So the longer you wait to fix something, the more likely it is to catastrophically break more. And you're just saying, let's grind it more. Grind it until it really gets loud and then do something about it. Wait for chaos to show up before you react. It's just fucking stupid. But what did I expect? As much as I'm just not a hope kind of person, I clearly have these notions of hope that people will redeem and they'll do something better than what I'm expecting. And they always end up doing something fucking worse. It's really annoying. But I keep doing the Martin Luther King thing. I keep not blaming the present on the function of the past. I keep cutting the present a break and say, go ahead. Prove yourself just as bad as the rest. Yeah. I give them the chance to fuck it up. Bravo. Successfully accomplished. You have fucked the present. Unpleasantly. Unskillfully, and as any retard in love with chaos would. Oh, God. I just had a vision of the Jolly Green Giant taking a big giant dump on his fucking domicile, just saving the world the grief. Big vegetable dump. Yeah, that would be a perfect irony.
And number 2, those who are waiting for internal order will be the subjects of external chaos.
Whatever that means. So those who organize a system and work on it, like creating Linux, for example, it's going to all turn into shit and it's not ever going to work again. It's all going to blow up. No point in creating the order, the organization, the function, because somehow the function will disappear. No, it's not really working that way, TJ. The satellites are getting more reliable. The rocket ships, the airplanes. Airplanes are doing really good lately. It's getting better, in terms of the function. I got these tablet things, for $5, and they've been running every day, all day, 11 watts of electricity, and they just keep running. Stuff's getting pretty good, TJ, in terms of its function. The little bit of order put in is getting us a lot of order out. So another silly aphorism. Stick your finger in your ass and somehow it'll smell like roses. I mean, you're just way off. That's not what's going to happen.
Those who yield to internal chaos will be the architects of a new order.
Amazing. Yield to internal chaos. What is internal chaos? Will somebody explain what internal chaos is besides retardation? Who but retards are internally chaotic? Who but idiots are internally retarded? I mean, chaotic. I mean, he's just making some complete bullshit argument that somehow the handy incapable are going to come running to the rescue. And it's just such a fucking lie. Man, what a dumb fuck. Alright, so I think that's, I think we did it for now, and then we'll move on to the next, hopefully chapter 2 will be a while. Yeah, I don't want to do this every day. Although I could, because it's just so easy. I mean, this is a little bit easy. And I suppose it's a good platform, because, you know, if people can't get these simple arguments, they're not going to get anything else. And that seems apparent. I mean, people really are dumb. So, I mean, Jordan Peterson just should have written a book saying, you're all too fucking stupid to describe. Because that's what the truth is. You're just all too fucking stupid. So anyway, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's enough. Part 3 completed, task completed, blah 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 blah. So, till the next thing that rolls in front of me and such. No, there's nothing to say. I mean, it's a very dramatic presentation, but it was just such shit. Very good acting, but really poor script, right? Yeah, just really poor.